Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tathastu. As part of Prelims Aadharshila series, I am taking the series Dandi to Azadi, and as part of that, today is the 5th lecture. Overall, it is the 53rd lecture of Aadharshila. So in last class, we had discussed about 1935 Act. We had discussed the various provisions of 1935 Act, and we had also discussed the implications or the evaluations of analysis of 1935 Act. What Nehru said, that it was a charter of slavery and it was a machine with all brakes and no engine. So as you know that as part of 1935 Act, All India Federation was proposed and provincial autonomy was given. But All India Federation could not come into reality. Why it could not come into reality? Because whether it was the Congress or the Muslim League or the princely states, none of them accepted the provision of All India Federation in the way it was proposed. So it could not come into reality. But the provision of provincial autonomy came into reality. Hello, Guddu. So the provision of provincial autonomy came into reality very soon as the act was enacted. So today we will see the 1937 elections, which happened because of the provincial autonomy which was given as part of 1935 Act. We will see the elections, its results, what were its implications, and what were the events which led to 1937 elections. So let's start with 1935 Act. So first came this 1935 Act, and as part of that, provincial autonomy was given. 1937 election we will see, Jagjit. So in 1935 Act, provincial autonomy was given, and as part of this, the government thought to have election in 1937. So in February 1937, provincial elections were announced to be held in 1935 Act. So we had seen 1935 Act. We'll see today the election, but in between we will see the other things which had happened. Like if we see in 1936, there happened the Lucknow session of the Congress, and this happened in April 1936, and similarly in December 1936 happened the Fazpur session of Indian National Congress. So we will see both of them because a number of events, a number of things happened in both these sessions which are important for our examination. So if we see the Lucknow session of Congress, who was the president? Nehru ji. Nehru ji was the president. Jawaharlal Nehru, Chota Nehru. So Jawaharlal Nehru ji was the president of Lucknow session of Indian National Congress. And in this session, one more important thing happened, and that was the formation of All India Kisan Sabha. All India Kisan Sabha. Who was the first president of All India Kisan Sabha? Swami Sahajanand Saraswati. Swami Sahajanand Saraswati was the first president of All India Kisan Sabha. And who was the General Secretary of All India Kisan Sabha? General Secretary N.G. Ranga. N.G. Ranga. So this is another development which happened in 1936 Lucknow session, which is important for our examination. Then the question arises that this All India Kisan Sabha proposed a Kisan manifesto. What it proposed? It prepared, in fact, a Kisan manifesto. What were the things which were part of this Kisan manifesto? So first thing which was part of Kisan manifesto was abolition of Zamindari. It talked about the Zamindari ko khatam karna hai. Abolition of Zamindari was first thing. Second thing was occupancy rights. Occupancy rights to all tenants. So occupancy rights were proposed to be given to all tenants as part of Kisan manifesto. Then another thing proposed under Kisan manifesto was reduction of interest rate and debts of peasants. Reduction of interest rates and debts of peasants. So as part of the Lucknow session of Congress, which happened in 1936, Nehru ji was the president and All India Kisan Sabha was also formed in this Lucknow session of Indian National Congress. And in this session, as part of All India Kisan Sabha, they proposed a Kisan manifesto which talked about the abolition of Zamindari, which also talks about the occupancy rights to all tenants. All those tenants who were working on the fields, they were to be given what? Occupancy rights. In addition, it also talked about reduction of interest rates and debts of peasants. It also talked about this. So these were some of the things which were talked about in the Kisan manifesto. Now coming to the next thing which happened in this session, as part of the Lucknow session, as part of the Lucknow session 1936, as you know, 1935 Act talked about the provincial autonomy and provincial elections. But what happened after that, that within Congress a divide occurred or a debate started regarding whether Congress should contest elections, whether Congress should accept the office or not. So, good evening Munna ji. So, if we see the Lucknow session of 1936, what happened was that all nationalists were unanimous that yes, 1935 Act has to be boycotted. It has to be boycotted, root and branch. There was a consensus on this, that yes, 1935 Act has to be boycotted. In addition, a consensus also emerged on this issue that Congress should participate in 1937 elections. So this was another thing on which consensus emerged, that yes, Congress should participate in 1937 elections and 1935 Act has to be boycotted. हिंदी मीडियम, ये इंग्लिश मीडियम का है सचिन. दिस चैनल इज फॉर इंग्लिश मीडियम, ये हिंदी मीडियम का नहीं है. So if we see कि nationalist 1935 act has to be violated, ये nationalists were agreed on this. Second thing that they were agreed on, where Congress should participate in 1937 elections. This is something they were agreed. But a division occurred on another issue, and that was the Congress got divided. The Congress got divided into two things. Congress got divided into two groups. One was those who favored office acceptance, or first we write those who opposed office acceptance after 1937 elections. So as the leaders were knowing that Congress had a high chance of success, Congress had a high probability of winning the 1937 elections, चांस बहुत ज़्यादा थे कांग्रेस के जीतने के. So एक ग्रुप था those who opposed the office acceptance. नहीं, मैं हिंदी में भी पढ़ाता हूँ सचिन, इंग्लिश हिंदी दोनों में पढ़ाता हूँ. So if we see the Congress, those who opposed office acceptance, they were कि even if Congress wins elections, अगर कांग्रेस जीत भी जाती है चुनाव, even if Congress wins elections, then also Congress should not accept the office. Congress should not form the ministry. So first was this, and second group was those who favored office acceptance. Those who favored office acceptance. So there were two groups. One was those who opposed office acceptance, one was those who favored office acceptance. And we can say this group was basically those people with left orientation were against accepting office, and those who were having the right orientation. So who were the leaders? Like Jawaharlal Nehru, like Subhash Chandra Bose, like Congress Socialists. These were the ones who were against the acceptance of office, and who were in favor of accepting office? Rajendra Prasad, Vallabhbhai Patel, J.P. Kripalani, etc. Other leaders. So within Congress, two groups divided on the issue of accepting office. So what was the issue? Accepting office after 1937 elections. So one were those who opposed this, one were those who favored this. So now let's see what were the arguments given in its favor. So what were the arguments given in its favor? So as I told you, as part of 1936 Lucknow session, Jawaharlal Nehru in his presidential address talked about a number of things, talked about a number of issues which makes it necessary, or which makes it important that Congress should not accept office. So what were those points which Nehru highlighted? The first point Nehru highlighted was that since we are boycotting 1935 Act, if we accept office, it would be a negation of the boycott of 1935 Act. So first argument was कि accepting office would be negation of boycott of 1935 Act. if you are boycotting the 1935 Act, how can you accept office under 1935 Act? So first argument was this. Second argument which Nehru gave was that it would be assuming responsibility without power. It would be assuming responsibility of ministry without power. Why? Because still the governor had lot of discretion power, as we have seen in 1935 Act, that governor of the place, governor of the province had lot of discretionary power. So he said it would be akin to assuming responsibility without power. In addition, he said it would also mean that Congress is helping, Congress by assuming the ministries, by taking oath as ministers, congressmen, they will help in continuation of the imperial structure, and this would be akin to letting the masses down. So the third point under this was that Congress will assume the responsibility for running the imperial administration. Congress would assume the responsibility for keeping the imperialist structure functioning. Responsibility for keeping imperialist structural functioning and letting masses down. So this was the another reason given by Nehru, that it would be assuming responsibility for keeping the imperialist structure functioning. Why? Because at the center, if we see at the center, since All India Federation did not come into reality, Viceroy and his council at center were exercising all the powers. So all the basic structure of imperial rule was why we say left who opposite accepted office. Basically, Jagjit, there were two groups. One was the one who opposed the office acceptance. One was those who supported office acceptance. So generally the people who opposed, they were from the socialist, they were having the socialist ideology. They were having the ideology tilted towards communism. That's why I have written left and right. And those who were in favor of, they were having the ideology of right. That's why I have written like this. Otherwise there is no as such distinction here. It is only because of their ideology, because Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, all these people were having the socialist ideology. So responsibility for keeping imperialist structure functioning and letting masses down, because generally the right wingers, they favor the constitutionalist means, and left wing, they are more radical in their approach. They oppose the office acceptance. That's why I am talking about this. In addition to this, Nehru also said that acceptance of the office would dilute the revolutionary character of Indian national movement. It would dilute the revolutionary character of Indian national movement. In addition, another reason given by Nehru was that it would divert Congress from core issues. What were the core issues? Core issues were freedom, core issues were economic and social justice, economic and social justice, so the argument given by Nehru was that it will divert Congress from core issues like freedom, economic and social justice, economic and social justice, removal of poverty. So these were some of the reasons. So Jamshed, good evening, very good evening. So these were some of the reasons given by Nehru that why they opposed office acceptance, because it would be negation of the boycott of 1935 Act, it would be assuming responsibility without power, it would dilute the revolutionary character of Indian national movement, it would be assuming responsibility for keeping the imperialist structure functioning and letting the masses down, and another was it would divert the Congress from core issues like independence, freedom, economic and social justice, removal of poverty. So these were some of the reasons given by the Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose and other leaders who were not in favor of accepting office after winning in 1937 elections. Those who favored, what about those who favored office acceptance? Those who favored office acceptance, there were some issues on which they were in agreement, like they were in agreement that yes, 1935 Act has to be boycotted. There is no doubt about this. Second thing, they also said that office acceptance can work only in short term. So this is a short term tactic, because in long term, yes Vinay, 1935 Indian Government Act, already we discussed 1935 Act in the last class, na? So those who favored office acceptance, as I told you, whether Rajendra Prasad, Vallabhbhai Patel, J.B. Kriplani, these were the leaders, C. Raja Gopalachari. So these were the leaders who favored office acceptance. So they agreed that yes, 1935 Act has to be boycotted. They also agreed that this office acceptance can only work in short term. So this is a short term tactic. It will not lead to freedom. For freedom, you have to launch the mass. For freedom, you have to launch the mass movement only. This office acceptance will not lead to freedom. So they also agreed on this. In addition, they also said that office acceptance is not a matter of principle, but a matter of strategy. So they said that office acceptance is a matter of strategy, because those against office acceptance, they were saying that it is a matter of principle, we should not accept office. So those in favor, they said that it is just a matter of strategy. Why a strategy? Because in 1933-34 itself, civil disobedience movement declined. So it takes some time for the masses to again regroup and get prepared for the next mass movement. So in between, what should we do? If we remain idle, we are not doing anything, that is not a right strategy. So the right strategy is, since we are going to accept office, we will do some work there as part of our Indian national movement. So for them, it was a matter of strategy. What were the logic they gave? The logic they gave was that if Congress do not accept office, other groups will accept office. Muslim League is there, other parties are there, they will accept office, they will form government, and when they will form government, they will use their ministries, they will use their power to weaken the national movement, they will use their power to propagate their communal politics, communal policies. So the argument given was, if Congress does not accept office, others will form ministries, and will try to weaken nationalism and promote communal policies So this was the reason they gave, that if INC, Indian National Congress, does not accept office, then this will become that others will form their government, and then they will try to weaken the nationalism and encourage communal politics. In addition, they also said that this provincial ministries, they can be used to do the constructive work. They can be used to promote the interests of several groups. So provincial ministries can contribute towards constructive works also. We can use the ministries to promote constructive works. What type of constructive work? Like promotion of khadi, like promotion of education, like prohibition. Basically, the provincial ministries can be utilized for the Thank you, Sabina. So provincial ministries can be utilized for promotion of khadi, education, prohibition. All these things can be also used for village development, rural development, upliftment of Harijans, All these things we can do using the provincial ministries. So basically, it can also be used to reduce burden of taxation on peasants, etc. So these were some of the arguments given by those who were in favor of accepting office. So two groups, one not in favor of accepting office after 1937 election, other in favor of accepting office. Both were having their own arguments, and the argument of both groups were very genuine, very rational, and very strong. But finally, they agreed on something, that yes, because the majority of leaders, majority of congressmen were in favor of accepting office. So finally, they agreed on this, that okay, we will accept office, we will fight elections together, and we will accept office. But these were some of the arguments which were going on before. So as I told you in beginning itself, that first we saw the 1935 Act, then Lucknow session. In Lucknow session, we have discussed that President was Nehru ji, and Nehru ji gave a lot of arguments in favor of not accepting office. Then the right wingers, they also gave their arguments. Then comes the December 1936 Faizpur session. December 1936 Faizpur session. Here also, who was the president? Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru was president. This Faizpur session is known for two things. First thing is, for the first time, session was happening in rural area, in a village in Jalgaon, Maharashtra. So one uniqueness was, for the first time, this session was having, one Congress session was having in rural areas instead of any great or bigger city. So one was this. Another thing which happened in Faizpur session was that an agrarian program this is very important, that Congress agreed on an agrarian program in which session? In Fazpur session. We just saw in 1936 Lucknow session, All India Kisan Sabha was formed under the leadership of Sahajanand Saraswati. So, as a part of that, as an impact of the Kisan Sabha movement, Congress agreed on an agrarian program in 1936 Fazpur session. So, what were the things which were part of this agrarian program? What were the things which were part of this agrarian program? So, one was the reduction of land revenue by 50%. Second was one was the reduction of land revenue by 50%. Second was minimum wages for agricultural labor. Minimum wages for agricultural labor. These were some of the things. One was reduction of land revenue by 50%. Another was minimum wages for agricultural labor. Ram Ram Vasisht. Another thing was that recognition of peasant union. Another thing was recognition of peasant union. Like lot of Kisan Sabha were formed. Okay, so they has to be recognized. Peasant unions have to be recognized. Basically, the sabhas, the groups of the peasants. And another thing was abolition of feudal duties. The feudal levies. Basically, the Jamindars, they used to levy a number of taxes on the peasants. So all the feudal levies, they has to be abolished. So these were some of the things which were part of what? Part of the agrarian program, which was agreed in the 1936 Fazpur session. So Fazpur session is important for this. One is it happened in rural area. Another thing is agrarian program was there, and these were some of the points related to that agrarian program. Now moving next to the election aspect of 1937. So next we will see the elections. If we see the election, it happened in 11 provinces. If we see the election of 1937, so it happened in 11 provinces. So as I told you that in Congress there were two groups, one favored office acceptance, another opposed office acceptance. But finally, and what was the stand of Gandhi ji? You may be curious to know कि गांधी जी को क्या लग रहा था कि ऑफिस एक्सेप्ट करें या ना करें. So Gandhi ji initially was not in favor of office acceptance, but later on, due to the overwhelming support of office acceptance within Congress, Gandhi ji said that yes, let's give a trial to this experiment. Let's see if we can get something out of this. So basically, Gandhi ji was initially not in favor of this, but later on he agreed. So if we see the 1937 elections, it happened in 11 provinces. What were these 11 provinces? First was Northwest Frontier Province. Let's start from the Northwest Frontier Province first. Second, Punjab. पहले Northwest में देखते हैं Punjab, then Sindh. Then from there, let's come to United Provinces, which is now UP, United Provinces. Then beside United Province, there was Bihar, Odisha. Then east you had Bengal. Then you had Assam. Then if you see, there were central provinces, Bombay presidency was there, and Madras presidency was there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes. So these were the 11 provinces. You must be wondering कि बाकी province में क्यों चुनाव नहीं हुआ? Why only in 11 provinces? Because in other places there were princely states. They were not part of the British India. So only in these 11 provinces, which included the 3 presidencies, elections were conducted in 1937. And in this election, Congress, both the left wing within Congress and right wing, they came together, they campaigned extensively. खूब प्रचार किया इन्होंने. They traveled throughout the country and they in fact got massive response from the people also. People were very receptive towards the Congress. But if we see the 1937 election, what were the things which Congress proposed in its manifesto? We should have an idea कि क्या manifesto में था कांग्रेस के. थोड़ा सा इसको भी देख लेते हैं. So one was obviously the rejection of 1935 Act, as I have been telling you. Second was the release of political prisoners. If we come into power, that is what manifesto is. Manifesto is a promise that yes, if I come to power, I will do this. Like recently, now also you see all the political parties, they come with their manifesto. In the same way, Congress manifesto, it talked about release of political prisoners. Release of political prisoners. It also talked about the right to form trade unions. The right to form trade unions. It also talked about the right to strike. It also talked about removing disabilities due to sex and caste. So it also talks about basically the discriminations, the disabilities which the lower castes as well as the women face. So the removal of those things. So Congress manifesto talked about a number of things. It also talked about, as I have been telling you, reduction in land revenue, land rates. Then it also talked about the reduction of debt and provision of credit for the farmers, and provision of credit, because in rural areas now also, you know, money lenders, they have a big influence in rural area, and because of that so many farmers commit suicide. So that's why Congress proposed that yes, provision of credit for the farmers as well as reduction of their debt if they are in debt trap. Namaste Sudhanshu. So these were some of the things Congress talked about. Provision of cheap credit rather than credit, right? Cheap credit. Reduction of debt, provision of cheap credit, right to strike, total rejection of 1935 Act, removing disabilities due to sex and caste. All these things, इन सारी चीजों के बारे में कांग्रेस ने प्रॉमिस किया अपने मैनिफेस्टो में. As expected, in election, Congress election campaign received massive response, as I told you. So, as expected, as I told you, INC got massive response in election. It got massive response in election. It was able to catch in 1935 Act, seats were reserved for women. So women participated in huge numbers in 1937 elections. They were given the voting rights also, and seats were reserved for them to contest also. So in 1935, women participation in election also increased. So as expected, Congress received massive response in the election and it won a number of seats. Like if we see the total number of seats in the election, there were around 1585 seats. There were total this many seats, and as I told you, how many provinces? 11 provinces. Out of these seats, some seats were reserved for the Muslims. Why? Because there was separate electorate. So out of this 1585, 482 seats were reserved for Muslims as part of separate electorate. First is this. Second thing is, out of this 1585, Congress contested, INC contested 1161 seats. 1161 seats, and it won 716 seats, which was massive. Why it was massive? Because Congress won majority on its own in 5 provinces. 5 province में कांग्रेस खुद के दम पे मेजॉरिटी पे आ गई. So it won majority on its own in 5 provinces and emerged as largest party in 3 provinces. So after all, if we see, Congress was able to form government in 8 provinces. So Congress ministries were installed in 8 provinces as part of this 1937 elections. So first is this Congress. Then we will talk about the condition of Muslim League. 482 seats were reserved for Muslim League, and all these were part of the separate electorate. But you will be surprised to know that Muslim League won only 106 seats. Only 106 seats out of 482 seats reserved for Muslims, which clearly shows that Muslim League was not even the representative of Muslim community, because the 482 seats which were part of separate electorate and reserved for Muslims, Muslim League could not win a majority of them. In fact, it won only 106 seats. That is, it is less than 25% of all the Muslim seats. So the situation for Muslim League was quite disadvantageous. In fact, out of this 482 seats, 26 seats Congress also won. So in this Muslim seats also, Congress won 26 seats. So because of this election, whole equation, whole politics of India got changed, because people got to know that Muslim League was not the real representative of Muslims. They were not able to win the seats of the Muslims. But then the question arises, who were the parties who won these seats? So as I told you, in 8 provinces, Congress was able to form its ministries, and in the remaining 3 provinces, Punjab, Bengal and Sindh, these were the 3 provinces in which Congress did not form its ministries. So in Punjab there was this Unionist party led by Sikandar Hayat Khan. He was the one who had got the highest seat in Punjab. So he formed an alliance with Muslim League to form ministry. So in Punjab, ministry was formed by the alliance of Unionist party led by Sikandar Hayat Khan and Muslim League. In the same way, in Bengal, if we see, in Bengal, Congress had emerged as the largest party, but second largest party was Krisak Praja Party led by Fazlul Haq. Fazlul Haq. So here also Fazlul Haq got aligned with Muslim League to form the ministry. And in Sindh there was a local party, which formed the government. It was not Muslim League, it was Sindh United Party. It was Sindh United Party. So, as you can see, the results of the 1937 elections were overwhelmingly in favor of Congress, and Jawaharlal Nehru got so excited because of this result that he said that there are only two parties which exist on the scene of Indian political scenario, and those are British Raj and Indian National Congress. Nehru completely neglected Jinnah. He completely neglected Muslim League, and it had very great impact. It had very great consequences, as I will see its impacts. In addition, one more point you can write is Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar had also fought this election, and his party was Independent Labour Party. As you may be knowing, he had formed Independent Labour Party in 1936. So he also went into election, and he was able to win 14 out of 17 contested seats in Bombay Presidency. This is one fact you can write, that yes, Dr. Ambedkar, he was not a big player, he was just a small player. He contested only 17 seats. Good evening, Preeti. He contested only 17 seats in Bombay Presidency, and he won 14 out of those 17. So this is another fact that you can write. Now we will talk about the impact of this 1937 elections. It had huge impact, huge implications. Why it had huge implications? Because Congress emerged victorious. It formed ministries in 8 provinces, and Muslim League could own only few seats. So there was a churn, there was a discussion in the Muslim community, because they were worried that all the political gains that the Muslim community has made in the last 20-30 years, they were thinking that all these things will vanish, all these things will go if Congress continue to win like this. So basically the community, the communal interest of the Muslim group, Muslim community was at stake, and because of this, Muslim League, as I told you, it won very few seats. Till 1937, Muslim League was nothing more than a debating forum. It did not had any appeal in the masses. But because of this elections, because of this, it had great impacts. So let's see the impacts. First is the impact on Congress. As you know, resounding victory. As I told you, Nehru said that only two parties in Indian political scene. And what were those parties? Congress and British Raj. Congress and British Raj. In addition, at this point of time, Jinnah was ready, or Jinnah was willing, Jinnah or Muslim League was willing to have arrangement with Congress for power sharing. Arrangement with Congress for sharing power. But Nehru was not ready. Nehru completely rejected these demands. In fact, Nehru started a campaign. Nehru started a campaign for Muslim outreach. He decided to go into the masses. In fact, it also countered Muslim League on the issues of separate electorate and other things. So Jinnah was willing to have arrangement with the INC for sharing power, but this was rejected completely by Indian National Congress, but because it was running high on the success of its election campaign, the results of the election campaign. And this was also the first association of Congress with apparatus of power. This was also the first association of Congress with apparatus of power. In addition to that, first we are seeing the impacts on Congress. In addition to that, it was also a victory of constitutional politics in Congress. It was also a victory of constitutional politics versus agitational politics of Gandhiji. Agitational politics of Gandhiji. So these were some of the impacts of this 1937 election. If we see the impact of 1937 election on Muslim League, it was also in a way having great consequences for the nation, for our future. Why? Just we'll see. If we see the Muslim League in a dismal performance, disadvantageous position, as I told you, all gains made in last 20-30 years threatened. All the gains which Muslim community had made in last 20-30 years, good evening Jannu. So all the gains which were made in the last 20-30 years, all these were threatened. सब कुछ खतरे में पड़ गया मुस्लिम लीग के लिए. And Muslim League, which was no more than a debating forum, a debating club till 1937, regrouped. All the Muslim parties came under the leadership of Jinnah. So basically what happened, that this setback brought all divergent Muslim groups, Muslim parties under the umbrella of Muslim League under leadership of Jinnah. This happens in real life also. ये रियल लाइफ में भी होता है कि जब आपका सब कुछ खतरे में होता है तो आप एकजुट हो जाते हैं. There is unity among people. When somebody threaten you, you will see in family also. If a neighbor threatens you and he is very powerful, all family members will come together. सारे परिवार के लोग साथ आ जाते हैं जब कोई बाहर का नेबर जो है आपको धमकाता है. तो उसी तरह से when कांग्रेस won a majority in 1937 इलेक्शन, जब 1937 के इलेक्शन में कांग्रेस जीत गई पूरी तरह से, तो मुस्लिम जो पार्टीज थी उनको डरा के और मुस्लिम लीग ने जो है उनको एकजुट कर लिया. तो ये जितने भी पार्टी थे, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, कृषक प्रजा पार्टी, यूनियनिस्ट पार्टी, ऑल दीज केम टुगेदर अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ जिन्ना, अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ Muslim League. That's why I told you that this 1937 election was very important. It has great consequences. And then what happened in 1938? What happened that in October 1938, last thing I am telling you in this lecture, a meeting of Sindh branch of मुस्लिम लीग हैपेंड एट कराची। कराची में एक मीटिंग हुई, जो सिंध ब्रांच था मुस्लिम लीग का, उसकी मीटिंग हुई, ठीक है, अंडर लीडरशिप ऑफ जिन्ना, अंडर लीडरशिप ऑफ जिन्ना। एंड हेयर एंड इन दिस सिंध मीटिंग एंड इन दिस, और ये जो मीटिंग है जो अक्टूबर 1938 में सिंध कराची में हुआ, द मीटिंग विच हैपेंड इन कराची अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ जिन्ना, जिन्ना के लीडरशिप में जो मीटिंग हुई कराची में, इसमें क्या निर्णय लिया गया? टू नेशन थ्योरी की बात की गई। इट टॉक्ड अबाउट द टू नेशन थ्योरी फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इन 1938। तो पहली बार जो दो नेशन थ्योरी की बात है वो कहां की गई? इस रिजोल्यूशन में। सो फर्स्ट डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ टू नेशन थ्योरी, दो राष्ट्र की जो बात है, टू नेशन थ्योरी की जो बात है, वो कहां की गई? सबसे पहली बार अक्टूबर 1938 में। फर्स्ट डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ टू नेशन थ्योरी हियर, दो इट वाज नॉट सेपरेटिज्म, अभी अलगाव की बात नहीं है। इट इज विद इन अ यूनाइटेड इंडिया वेयर देयर विल बी अ कॉमन सेंटर, बट यस, फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम टॉक ऑफ द टू नेशन, हिंदू नेशन एंड मुस्लिम नेशन। एंड व्हाई दिस हैपन, ये क्यों हुआ? क्योंकि 1937 के इलेक्शन के बाद, आफ्टर 1937 इलेक्शन, द सिचुएशन वाज सच दैट ऑल मुस्लिम ग्रुप्स केम टुगेदर, जितने भी मुस्लिम पार्टीज थे, ग्रुप्स थे, वो सब साथ आ गए अंडर द लीडरशिप ऑफ मुस्लिम लीग, और उन्होंने डिसाइड किया इन कराची, एक रिजोल्यूशन लिया, एंड दैट रिजोल्यूशन टॉक्ड अबाउट टू नेशन फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम। फिर हम आगे देखेंगे, वी विल सी फर्दर दैट हाउ फ्रॉम हियर ऑनवर्ड्स जो पाकिस्तान के बनने की जो संभावना है, जो शुरुआत है, वो यहीं से होती है। 1937, जैसा तक मैंने आपको बताया, 1937 तक, टिल 1937 मुस्लिम लीग वाज अ डिबेटिंग फोरम, बट आफ्टर दिस it emerged as a serious contender for a new nation, for a new country. So in that sense, जो 1937 का इलेक्शन था वो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट था, वो बहुत कंसिक्वेंशियल था। That's all in today's lecture. Next class में we will talk about other things after the 1937 elections. Thank you.